Hey, well, thank you for this special edition of the Prophecy Pros podcast. And this is just probably going up on YouTube, but it's not often, we're so often we're talking about different topics, and Jeff and I are both talking. I get to sit my brother down and grill him about his new book that I'm super excited about. Jeff has a new book out, just came out, called God's Grand Finale. And we're going to talk about that today. I'm not going to steal any thunder because I think there's some incredible things that he has to share in this book. So Jeff, I'll just dive right in if that's okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Well, so people tend to avoid the book of Revelation. You and I talk about that a lot on our podcast, and we've written books about that. They avoid it like the plague, pun intended.
Yeah. The plagues.
What are some of the key things? This is kind of a two-part question. What are some of the key things that people really miss out on if they avoid the book of Revelation? And along with that, with this book, tell our viewers a little bit about the format and the purpose of the book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wrote this book because, like people do, they think of Revelation as just a book about prophecy or a book about the future or a book about humanity and all that. And it is. It's all those things. But what most people don't realize is that God's last book that he ever wrote wasn't written only just to tell us about the future, but to tell us about himself.
Yeah.
So it's the revelation, it says in the very first verse, of Jesus Christ. People skip right over that. It's the revelation of Christ. So this entire book, as I walk you through the entire book of Revelation, is about who is my God? Who is my God? So it turns out the last thing God wanted you to know was not just about what's going to happen, but about who he is, and therefore how we can relate to him.
Yeah.
So that's really why I wrote the book. And when people miss Revelation, they not only miss the future in terms of knowing it, but they miss who God really is.
Yeah, so true. I think that's a handle, so to speak, in Revelation that most people never even realize is there. That you bump into God in a new light over and a different angle of God, or so to speak, or a different attribute of God. And that's kind of what you highlight in each of these chapters. And I love it because you go chronologically through the book of Revelation, so they're learning what's in it. And in each section, the key thing you highlight is the attribute of God that they will come in contact with. I think it's so unique. I don't know. I wish I would have thought of it, to be honest with you, because it's pretty compelling. But what a great way to do it. So let's highlight a little bit about, just to kind of show them an example of an attribute of God. Let's look at chapter 5, a trip to the throne room. Why don't you share with them the tagline to that and what attribute we're talking about there?
Yeah, it's really about the God who is sovereign. And, what God did for John was, before he showed him what was going to happen in the earth, all the seal, trumpet, bowl judgments, horrific chaos that's going to go on the planet, catastrophes. He said, John, come up here. I want to show you something. He brings him to the throne room and he shows him the throne. He shows him the sovereign throne of God that is established, that is immovable, that is occupied, and that is controlling all the things that are going to happen in the rest of Revelation. Now, here's the cool thing about this is that when we encounter these attributes of God, that's what essentially changes us. I mean, it doesn't really change me to know that there's going to be demon locusts released, but it changes me to know that the attribute of God that is behind, some of these things. And think about it. Everything that has changed us about our Christian lives has been because of something that is true of God. Some attribute of him, whether it's his love, his mercy, his grace, whatever it is, it's all because of who he is. So the more we encounter who God is, the more we are changed. And that's why Revelation, as we're going to look at in this book, God's Grand Finale, is really a like an uber devotional book. It's like an ultra devotional book that really brings you close to God.
It really is. The more you think about it, just think about the word throne. When you say that, you suddenly have connotations of a God who's in control, or somebody who's in control. And then you put that into context of seeing the heavenly throne room. I get goosebumps just talking about it, man.
It is an encounter none of us will ever forget.
That's right.
It really is,
So we start there, the attribute of his sovereignty. What a great word, a thing that a lot of believers maybe haven't thought about before. So it's great they're bumping into that God is sovereign. So then as we move through we won't have time, obviously, to go through all the attributes, but as we move chronologically through the book of Revelation, when we're looking at chapters 6 through 19, the events of the tribulation period and the 21 judgments and all that. What's an attribute or some attributes that you highlight in your book regarding that time period?
Yeah, it really highlights the fact that our God is a wrathful God. And this is something that we don't like to really think about. You think, where's my warm fuzzy for that? You know, I don't get one for that, right? Yeah. But God is a God of wrath, but you want him to be a God of wrath. You want God to be righteous. You want him to be holy. You want him to punish sin. You want him to do away with evil. You want him to take away the evil out of your own heart. And the only way he can do that is that he exercise his righteousness. And part of the tribulation period is God purging the earth of sin and punishing sinners. And so when we see that God is wrathful, and you know what? Heaven in the book of Revelation rejoices in the wrath of God. Now, it doesn't rejoice in just the essence of people by themselves being punished, but it rejoices in the fact that God is conquering sin and those who hate God, those who are evil, that have rejected him and are not going to accept him, they're being punished with the wrath of God. So we learn a whole lot about the wrath of God all throughout the book of Revelation.
In the introduction to the book, you use a great quote from A.W. Tozer that says, what you think about God is the most important thing about you. It guides everything. So when we look at this, the attribute of the wrath of God, we naturally want to pour in our own human understanding of what wrath is. Yeah. But I love what you do in the book is highlight the real biblical meaning of what wrath is, and that it is something that is an attribute of God to be celebrated because it's couched in perfection, in holiness, in all these other attributes combined. Wow. Thanks for explaining that. Now, like I said, we'd love to take time and go through each attribute, but you got to buy the book to get all that. But I did think it was really interesting how you wrapped up the book. I want you to share a little bit about how you ended the book and the marching orders and kind of how you brought it down from heady theology to practical real life marching orders.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, the book begins with the revelation of Christ, who he is. He reproves his church. We see the sovereignty of God. We see the wrath of God. We see the grace of God. The grace of God's going to be poured out in tribulation unlike any other time in human history.
That's right.
We see a God that recompenses evil. We see a God who is faithful to do what he said he's going to do and returning to the earth. We see a God that eventually is going to reward us as well. He's a God who rewards the faithful. But in the end of the book, you know, in Revelation 22, he's the God who calls. He is a God who issues a final call. This is the last call for anyone during the tribulation period. And, you know, it's a call not only to believers, because it says the Spirit and the bride say, come. Anyone who wishes to take from the water, you can come, and you should come. But it's also a call to the church because Jesus in chapters 2 and 3 was saying, wake up, get ready for me. At the end of the chapters, chapter 22, he says 2 to 3 times, behold, I'm coming quickly. So it's a call to the church to get ready. It's a call for believers to repent. It's a great opportunity for you to use this as a tool, really for evangelism, to say, hey, this is what's coming down the pike. But God says the door is open right now for you. So for me personally, it was a very rich, rewarding book to write.
I bet.
I think it's maybe my favorite book so far that I've written, only because I think it really immediately helps you understand who God is, how you can relate to him, and more importantly, you know, how you can love him and worship him and live for him right now in these last days.
So good. It's such a timely book. It's got handles on it. It hits you with some depth, but it's easy to read. It's great to give away to friends who don't even know the Lord. It'll make them take a fresh look at who God is and a fresh look at what's coming at us. I believe God's going to use it in a powerful way. And they can find this at any online bookstore. They can go to jeffkinley.com to find links directly to it. Is there anything else you want to share about the book, or anywhere else that they can bump into this book?
I'd just say, you know, check it out, because it's gonna blow up. I really think this book is going to be huge. I really want you to get a copy of it. So check out God's Grand Finale as soon as you can.
And for the Prophecy Pros, this is Todd and Jeff. Again, just had a privilege interviewing Jeff about his new book. Go pick one up today, and we'll talk to you soon.